we're using satellite observations of active fires, which is measuring basically the heat output. And from those measurements, we're able to estimate emissions from fires around the world. But focusing on Greece, we've been able to see that over this last 7 to 8 days of relatively high intensity fires, that the monthly total emissions for July are already the highest in the 21-year data set that we have.
So put it in simple terms for us, how much carbon is being released from these fires and what effect could that have?
Okay, well, in terms of the total carbon or the CO2 emissions, we've estimated for July so far about 4 megatons of carbon. And this is a relatively small number compared to, say, the fires in Canada, which have been burning since the beginning of May. And we don't know exactly how much of this carbon stays in the atmosphere. We can't really estimate that in near real time. But it's also reflecting the huge amounts of emissions of other atmospheric pollutants in the smoke, which have direct impacts on air quality. So as we already heard, that the smoke is really affecting local populations, and the scale of the emissions of carbon also reflects the scale of the emission of the other pollutants as well.
So Greece has hit this highest level in 20 years for July already when it comes to emissions from forest fires. And the hot weather and the fires aren't over yet. So how much worse could this be?
No, that's right. And yeah, it's hot weather, it's hot, dry winds that are blowing and really exacerbating these fires. The previous two, so for July, we have a highest emissions estimate for Greece, but not yet for the whole year. And there's only 2 years above 2023 in our data set, and those were 2 years ago in 2021 and much further back in 2007 when there was another famous heat wave in the region. But the point here is that most of those fires in those previous 2 years were occurring in August. And so obviously with August still to come and the rest of the summer, and we're already seeing...
Well, Mark, I think you're still with us. We lost your sound for a moment there. I wonder if I could ask you about the bigger picture, because these figures that you've released are just about Greece. You mentioned Canada. There are wildfires in many other countries around the world happening. What does this all mean for the global move to try and bring carbon emissions down?
That's right. We're seeing fires, large-scale, really fires across the whole of Canada since the beginning of May. Those are released an estimated almost a gigaton of CO2. And this has more likelihood to maybe impact on the growth rate of CO2 in the atmosphere. I mentioned earlier we can't estimate that in near real time, and there will be analysis to be done to see what that means in the broader climate sense from those emissions. But yeah, for Canada and for parts of Russia.
I think unfortunately
the conditions are right for fires at this time of year, and we're seeing. I'm sorry, I think I lost you.
Unfortunately, Mark, you're breaking up a bit, so we're going to have to leave it there, but it was great to hear from you today on the programme. Thank you for joining us. That's Mark Parrington from the Copernicus Atmosphere Monitoring Service.